I think Wind and Truth has my second favorite moment in the entirety of Stormlight. Hello World Hoppers, welcome to Cosmere Horizons, your one-stop shop for everything Cosmere. Today I will be ranking the most epic moments in the Stormlight Archive, and we have 65 things on this list. So there's really not that much time to waste. I'm just gonna get right into it. This will have massive spoilers for everything in Stormlight, including the novellas. Granted, there's not much to spoil there. I made this an actual tier list that you can do yourself, so in the description there will be a link that you can fill it out yourself. And we will be starting things off with our I would rather hang out with Moash and Lirin tier. Coming in 65th place, we have Moash becoming Vyre. This moment could have been so cool, and it wasn't. It was Yezrian's death, and it was like Moash really going off the deep end, and that could have been awesome. And it wasn't. Just don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. It doesn't feel cool. Coming in 64th place, we have the story of Fleet. That's the one Wit tells Kaladin in the prison after the duel in Words of Radiance. And it's boring. I don't like it. I listened to it this morning, and it's the one story that I don't even like it. I don't think I'd ever re-listen to it other than what I did this morning. You know, honestly, good riddance. I'm glad Fleet died. All right, hopping up into C tier, we have coming in 63rd place, the story, The Girl Who Looked Up. Now, I don't really remember this story. I remember thinking it was kind of cool, but it didn't really change anything for me. Although I do like that he told it to Shallan instead of Kaladin for this book. I thought that was kind of cool. Coming in 62nd place, we have the fight with the Midnight Mother in the beginning of Oathbringer. Now, it was fine. While I was reading it, I was like, what is happening? I do like the fact that we did a good confrontation with an Unmade. I just didn't specifically like this one, but I would love to see more like it. Well, we didn't get those now, did we? In 61st place, we have Ba Edo Mishram being released near the end of Wind and Truth. Now, I liked the idea of Ba Edo Mishram being released. I love that that's what the story was building to. You're like, oh my gosh, she's going to be released. What's going to happen? How's it going to affect anything? And then you have, Rlain and Renarin holding it up, about to free her. And then she gets freed, and she almost kills Renarin, and Rlain's like, no! And then it ends. And then it's like, to be continued. I don't know. It didn't go anywhere. Coming in 60th place, we have Shallan killing Formless. It was cool. It felt weirdly quick. As soon as it was a problem, it was swept under the rug, but it was also kind of cool, which is why it's in C+ tier. Coming in 59th place, we have Risen picking up the Dawn Shard change. The scene was really cool. I was like, oh my gosh, she's getting a Dawn Shard. What does that mean? It seems kind of cool. And that sentiment hasn't changed now that I've read the rest of the Cosmere. Coming in 58th place, we have Navani and Raboniel discovering the Rhythm of War. Now, I loved the Navani sections in Rhythm of War. It's some of my favorite parts of it. But them actually discovering the Rhythm of War, I liked that chapter, but I liked the plot line more than that specific moment, if that makes any sense. Coming in 57th place, we have when Kaladin parts the High Storm at the beginning of Oathbringer. I remember reading this being like, how is he doing that? What? That's so cool. But at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. It's cool. It's Kaladin doing his thing. But it's also kind of forgotten about, which is why it's kind of down here. Okay, now we're getting to B tier, and these are the ones that I'm like, yeah. Coming in 56th place, we have Talon's Return at the end of Way of Kings. It's cool. I like it a lot. You don't really know what the heck is happening the first time you read it, and the second time you happening, it's not mind-blowing. You're like, oh hey, there's Talon, because he broke. Oh, Talon broke the Oath Pact. Wow. He didn't. Coming in 55th place, we have Yasna soulcasting in The Way of Kings, where she's teaching the lesson to Shallan, and she's like, pooh, pooh, and people are freezing and catching on fire, and you're like, Yasna's crazy. Coming in 54th place, we have the Wandersail. Now, I like it a lot, especially with the context of Wind and Truth, but I'm counting this just as a story in Way of Kings. And in that regard, I do like it a lot, actually. It's honestly one of my favorite stories. But I did have to re-listen to it to remember exactly what it was about. Coming in 53rd place, we have Ashar's confrontation at the end of Rhythm of War, where Szeth chips the Honor Blade. It's a really cool moment, and it's a really cool confrontation, and honestly, the only interesting thing that happens to Dalinar in Rhythm of War. Is that a hot take? I hope not, because I said it. People gonna get angry. Not as angry when they see where I put the duel. Coming in 52nd place, we have the epilogue of Rhythm of War with Odium erasing Wit's memories. That was crazy. I remember I read it and I was like, I need Wind and Truth. And then it wasn't out yet. And I was like, oh, shucks. You know when Hoyd gets terrified, it's about to get intense. I feel like this next one's going to be a hot take. 41, I have I Am a Stick. And I don't really want to defend anything. I don't even know what to say about this one. Putting it at 41st because it's funny. But like, we literally have gods dying in this series. Coming in 40th place, we have Tanavast whole POV from Wind and Truth. I just think having that POV and like that font was like kind of crazy. And then like just finally being able to learn what happened to the Power of Honor finally. And I liked all of that. But at the end of the day, it was also like kind of not predictable, but like it didn't feel like that crazy. Like, oh, the Power of Honor's kind of left him. And then he died. Like, it didn't feel like it was like, oh my gosh. Like, it was just kind of a thing that happened. I don't know. Coming in 49th place, we have Shallan killing Tin in Words of Radiance. It was really cool when Shallan pulled out her shard blade and she was like, wah! But that's about it. Like, it doesn't hit as hard as on a reread because you know, like, what the shard blade is and that it's pattern. And it was just seeing her actually summon it for the first time. That was pretty cool. Coming in 40th place, we have Amaram returning at the beginning of Words of Radiance. I remember where I was when I read this. I was laying on my couch and I read it and I went, oh no, out loud. And then I went to the bathroom and I was just thinking about it and I was like, that's not good. I don't know why the bathroom part was relevant. Coming in 47th place, we have the debate from Wind and Truth. Now this is a controversial topic because you have people who love it and you have people who hate it. And then you have people in the middle who are like, it's all right. I know nothing about philosophy or debating. And so take that with a grain of salt. I thought it was really cool how it got really personal for Yasna because I just like seeing that into her character. All right, we're in B+ tier. These are things that I reacted to, but it was more like a, whoa, nice. Coming in 46th place, we have the prelude to The Way of Kings. I read this the first time and I was like, what? Actually, I wasn't like that at all because I didn't understand what the heck was going on. But after getting about halfway through Oathbringer, when I finally understood, I like to reread it and be like, that is pretty cool. So it gets brownie points for that. Coming in 45th place, we have the part in Oathbringer where you find out that the listeners are the originators of Rashar. That was a crazy twist because it puts the whole conflict, like switches it on its head. I think it did a lot for the narrative going forward. It was an all is lost moment in the book and I really liked it. Coming in 44th place, we have when Taravangian killed Kharbranth. Now, this was crazy because it was like his whole thing is he wanted to save Kharbranth. And then he was like, actually, you know what would be kind of funny. Coming in 43rd place, we have the conversation between Shallan and her mother in Wind and Truth. Now, this would not have been as high except for the whole twist at the end of the conversation when like her mom was like, yeah, you're here in the spiritual realm reliving your wedding day. And you're like, oh my gosh, it's actually her mom. And they're actually talking. Coming in 42nd place, we have Lift confronting Darkness at the end of Edge Dancer. I think this is a really important moment for Nail's character to see the shift of where he's at in Words of Radiance from the rest of the series. I realized how much of a sucker I am for Nail after Wind and Truth. All right, here we go. Coming in 41st place, we have Kaladin's fifth ideal. This should have been so much cooler. His fifth ideal is, I will become a battery. And then he became a battery. How many double A's do you think it would take to fill that amount of investiture? It was really cool to see Kaladin be the only one able to stand once Szeth is crippled down and Syl and Nail and they're all crawling on the ground. To see like Kaladin be the one to stand up, like that was really cool and I loved that. But the fifth ideal itself of I will protect myself, like it felt weird that he said his fifth ideal only after like 10 days. It didn't hit as hard for me as his other ideals. Coming in 40th place, we have like the entire beginning 200 pages of Rhythm of War when they're evacuating Hearthstone. I think it's really cool. I love Kaladin fighting the Pursuer. I love this is kind of like the last main fight we see Kaladin in, but I love how big it is for that. I love seeing Dalinar in the field using the perpendicularity as a weapon. I think that's awesome. But also like nothing super crazy happened that's sticking out in my mind, so I wouldn't really put it higher. Coming in 39th place, we have Shallan summoning Radiant in the beginning of Wind and Truth when like she's an actual physical version that can like stab. It's just really cool to see Shallan like take control of her light weaving like that. And I really liked that scene. That was the first time I reacted in Wind and Truth and it was pretty early on. And I was like, Oh, all right, rounding off B plus tier in position 38, we have Sixel getting the Dawn Shard. Now, I just really love this moment because Wit is so funny during it. He runs into the room, he tells Liren to shut up and pushes him out of the room. That made me laugh because I hate Liren. And then seeing Hoyd get just evaporated into like a bloody mist at the end, it was so funny, and I just really thoroughly enjoyed this scene. Now we're in A tier. These are moments that I think about from the books and I'm like, oh, that was, yeah. Coming in 37th place, we have Adolin killing Sadeas at the end of Words of Radiance. It would have just been annoying if Sadeas continued. At the end of the day, I love what it does for Adolin's character and the relationship with him and Dalinar. And you expect to have like a grand last fight with Sadeas, and it's really just on the ground, knife in hand, no shard blades, and it's awesome. I love it. I think it's great. Coming in 36th place, we have the Blackthorn burning the rift. It's just, and then, Coming in 35th place, we have Taravangian ascending to Odium at the end of Rhythm of War. I think this is a really cool direction to go, especially because once Reyes was kind of beaten at Thaylen Field, he didn't seem like that big of a threat in Rhythm of War. And so to spin it up a little bit, I thought that was great. It's awesome, and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, what does this mean for Wind and Truth? Coming in 34th place, we have Kaladin and Wit's last conversation at the beginning of Wind and Truth. I think it's a culmination of why I love the Kaladin and Wit dynamic. And to see Kaladin like actually consider Hoyd a friend, I think is awesome. I think that's great. Coming in 33rd place, we have the Chasm Fiend hunt from the beginning of The Way of Kings. This is an awesome intro to Dalinar Kholin and how he catches the Chasm Fiend claw. It's crazy. I absolutely was hooked the first time I read this. In 32nd place, we have Kaladin and Shallan fighting the Chasm Fiend. Remember when Kaladin and Shallan 2v1 to Chasm Fiend and won? That was pretty cool. I'm also kind of including the conversations they have along the bottom of the chasm in this as well. Coming in 31st place, we have Gavilar's prologue from Wind and Truth. I think this is really cool to see Gavilar's perspective of what we've been seeing over the past couple books and what he was actually doing and how he actually thought. And just the Cosmere connections that are in this sequence, I think are really cool. It's awesome. I love it. Coming in 30th place, we have Kaladin being strung up for the High Storm in The Way of Kings. And then just he opens his eyes to give them hope. It's absolutely adore. In 29th place, we have Kaladin versus Amaram. This is just such good payoff. Kaladin's whole speech about the spear that would not break. I think about that regularly. It's so Kaladin's the spear. Kaladin's the spear that would not break. The whole chapter, the whole Battle of Thaylen Field is named after the spear that would not break, and that's for a good darn reason. If you're liking this video and would like to see more future content, you should subscribe, because that would be pretty cool. This video took a lot of work. Like, you don't have to. But if you did... Alright, now we're in A+ tier, which these moments are just all awesome. In 28th place, we have the Oath Pact being reforged at the end of Wind and Truth. One, it was cool to see all the heralds come back, but also just to see Kaladin step through his character and who he has been from the beginning of Way of Kings to the end of Wind and Truth, and who he has become, and then becoming a herald. So good. Coming in 27th place, we have Dalinar visiting the Night Watcher, just seeing this really low point in Dalinar's life and him just wanting to forget, and then Cultivation comes out. It's a beautiful scene. Coming in 26th place, we have Maya shouting, "We chose" at the end of Rhythm of War. This was so cool. I remember reading it and being like, she spoke? In 25th place, we have Eshonai riding the storm at the end of Rhythm of War. I think this is a beautiful scene and just nice payoff to get for this character, because I really like Eshonai as a character and I wish we would have gotten more of her. Coming in 24th place, we have the prologue to The Way of Kings, To Kill. I think it's awesome. It's what got me hooked on the series. Just seeing Szeth bounce off the walls, like pew, 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 and he's like chopping and he's lashing, and then he fights the king, and it's a really cool scene. Coming in 23rd place, we have Navani becoming a bondsmith. I think this moment is so cool, and it's just to see that payoff of her fighting with the sibling the entire book, and then she's finally having that encounter with Moash, and then she finally bonds the sibling, and then she just lights up Moash and blinds him because she killed her son. I just love how it ties that all together. I think it's a beautiful sequence, and I'm so happy for Navani. I love Navani in Rhythm of War. It's so good. Coming in 22nd place, we have Shallan encountering the cryptics at the end of The Way of Kings. When I read this the first time, I freaked out because there's one line, and it just goes 10 heartbeats, I think. I don't know if that applies to me, or something like that. And I just read it and I was like, Shallan has a Shardblade. Shallan has a Shardblade? Coming in 21st place, we have the dance between Kaladin and Sylphrena in Wind and Truth. It is such a beautiful scene just to see these two characters dance together in the way they can dance, using the spear. This is where you get mad. I like the duel. It's why it's an A+ tier. But in 20th place, we have the duel. I like it, okay? I think it's cool. That's why it's an A+ tier. But, like, it's not the best scene in Words of Radiance. I get really mad when Kaladin messes it all up at the end. I get it's the most interesting direction for it to be taken, but I just get really mad about it. Coming in 19th place, we have Kaladin at the Honor Chasm. Such a powerful scene. Really emotional. He's so close, and then he comes back and he takes Gaz, and he has like that light of determination, even though he's like still depressed and still a slave and all these other things. Just seeing that little switch, and that starts to drive him to be better. Like, oh, such a good scene, and I love how it's referred to throughout the rest of the series. Just wonderful. Okay, now we're in S tier. These are all moments I love, and I will never get over them. Coming in 18th place, we have Taln fighting back in Wind and Truth. Oh, I've been waiting for this. I predicted this would happen, and it happened, and I was so excited. It's the fact that he just like stops muttering, and then the Bearer of Agonies fights back, and then the next time we see him, he's on dozens and dozens of corpses with like 12 different spears stabbed through him. It's so cool, and he's just dead. Oh my God. Coming in 17th place, we have a duel between storms with Kaladin and Szeth fighting in the sky at the end of Words of Radiance. It's just such like a beautiful scene that you can just picture so well, of them just clashing on the front of the high storm, Stormlight being immediately refueled. It's great. I love it so much. Coming in 16th place, we have when Szeth tries to assassinate Dalinar about halfway through Words of Radiance, and Adolin, Kaladin, and Dalinar fight Szeth. I think it's a wonderful scene. When I was reading it the first time, I stood up and I started like jumping in my room, and I started pacing, and I love this scene so much. It might be one of my favorites in Words of Radiance. I loved Szeth getting action that we actually cared about since the prologue, and finally it's all coming together and our characters are fighting. It's so good. I love that fight scene so much. I literally just have a vision of like a dark hallway and like just Honor Blade being dragged behind the assassin and what, like, oh, so cool. Coming in 15th place, we have the Contest of Champions. This involves Gavinor, this involves Dalinar ascending, this involves Retribution being born. I think it played out great. I was really worried that Gav was going to be Odium's champion, and then he was, but he was grown up 20 years, and that changed everything for me. I thought that made it work beautifully, and just him frozen there with the tears streaming down his face, realizing that 20 years of his life has been wasted. Oh, and then Dalinar wanting to teach the power of honor like a lesson, and the small little nuance of the power of honor feeling like something's wrong with what Taravangian did to Gavinor, but he kept his word, which is honorable, like, but the power of honor isn't sure how it feels about that, but he gets over it. Like, it's so cool. I just love the Contest of Champions. Coming in 14th place, we have Renarin comforting Dalinar. I just love that scene so much. It's my favorite Renarin and Dalinar moment. It's my favorite, honestly, one of my favorite moments in Oathbringer. It's so beautiful. So beautiful. Coming in 13th place, we have Tef's third ideal. It's so short. It's so simple, but it's fan-freaking-tastic. I will protect those I hate, even if the one I hate the most is myself. Are you kidding me? Especially with Tef's POV earlier in Oathbringer. Coming in 12th place, in a less awesome note, is Tef's death. I think it was the first time I ever cried while reading Stormlight. And when he says, "I die knowing I am loved," and his eyes, and then Fenderana dies right before it, and then Moash kills him. It's so emotional, and Kaladin just locks up. And I think it's so much more effective than if Lirin would have died, of seeing Teft die, because we like Teft. We hate Lirin. By we, I mean me. You can think whatever you want, but Lirin sucks. Coming in 11th place, we have Adolin and Abadai fighting at the end of Wind and Truth. I remember when the doors got locked and he couldn't even talk to Maya, I'm like, oh, he's screwed. He can't even summon his Shardblade. Are you serious? And then when Abadai's plate went onto him, like mid-air, it was It was so cool. I like lost my mind. Oh my gosh, it was such a good moment. All right, we're in top 10. Coming in 10th place, we have Kaladin's third ideal at the end of Words of Radiance. I will protect those, even those that I hate, so long as it is right. And then Syl comes back, and then Moash is like, what's happening? And the Kaladin flies off to go save the day. Kaladin realizing Elhokar is Dalinar's Tien, like, Coming in 9th place, we have Szeth's fifth ideal from Wind and Truth. Now, it's just awesome that the fifth ideal aligns so perfectly with Szeth not knowing what to choose, and literally he just has been following order after order. And it's cool to see how it recapped that entire who Szeth is into that final moment when he shouts, I am the law, skipping the fourth oath. He skips the fourth. I want to reread it right now. Coming in 8th place, we have the Kaladin and Nail fight from Wind and Truth. It is so emotional. It is so tense. I was literally on the edge of my seat the entire time. And then just tying in the Wandersail, seeing Nail break down. It's beautiful. And then seeing Nail's high spread leave him. Oh, it's so good. I absolutely adore this scene. All right, we're in the SS tier. These are my personal favorite moments. I think they're best from the series. I think about them semi-regularly. Coming in 7th place, we have the story of the dog and the dragon. This is my favorite story that Wit tells in the entire ever. I literally have a print of it right here by Shay Lundell Art. Check out her Instagram. It's right here. It's awesome. Her art is absolutely fantastic. Please go check it out because I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I love the story of the dog and the dragon. I will probably be telling it to my kids. I think it's a great story. I love the 2 different endings to it. I love how it comes to Kaladin in this moment. Coming in 6th place, we have Dalinar Kholin trading his Shardblade for the Bridgeman. The worth of a Shardblade has been being built up the entire book of the Way of Kings. And then just to see Dalinar trade that for the Bridgeman, and then the line of, I traded one priceless item for 3,000 priceless lives. I call that a bargain. Like, all right, top 5. In 5th place, we have Kaladin's 4th ideal in Rhythm of War. When he gets reunited with Tien, and then the kind of hint that it's like the actual Tien, or at least maybe after reading Wind and Truth, maybe some spiritual realm version of Tien. Like, I don't really know. Let me know in the comments down below. But just seeing that impact and Tien comforting Kaladin and Kaladin just weeping, and he's like, you're enough. He's like, I'm not enough. And he's like, you're enough for me. And Kaladin finally being able to say this ideal that he hasn't been able to say at the end of Oathbringer, like, oh, it's so good. And then he's literally in midair while he says the ideal. Dalinar fighting the Stormfather to give him this moment. Love, love, love Kaladin's 4th ideal. Coming in 4th place, we have Bridge 4 saving Dalinar Kholin. Basically, the Battle of the Tower, the ending of the Way of Kings. Just such a good scene. Seeing Kaladin like yell at Adolin for the first time. Oh my gosh. And then Dalinar fighting Eshonai, and then Kaladin having to come get him off his feet. And then we live through Tien's death. And then Kaladin runs and jumps across the chasm, breathes in the stormlight off the beards, which you're like, yep, like all the dots connect. It's such a good ending. And it's just such a powerful thing. I love the ending of the Way of Kings. Coming in 3rd place, we have Elhokar's death from Oathbringer. Rarely is there a death that you feel bad for that character opposed to how that impacts the other characters. And with Elhokar's death, it's both. Because Elhokar was just starting to get like great, and he goes to literally Kaladin at the end of Words of Radiance, and he's like, why do people like you? How can I be a better king? He goes to a former slave to say that. And then and then he's saying the oaths, holding his son in his hands, and Moash comes and stabs him through the eye, and he dies. And it's the best death in Stormlight. It's powerful, and even the rippling effects it has. In Wind and Truth, how Navani is reliving through her son's death, and she's running from it while Odium, with the voice of Elhokar, is shouting after her. It's so good. I absolutely adore Elhokar's death. I think it's absolutely wonderful. I love his character. Coming in 2nd place, we have Adolin standing against the tide from Wind and Truth, where he gets up on his peg leg, and he's talking about how, the world doesn't make sense anymore, and how everything he's done, you know, the Battle of the Towers is like didn't really do anything, and Sadius, like the duels meant nothing because he just killed him, and everything he's done hasn't really had an impact. And even, you know, even with what he did with Rhythm of War and getting the honor spren, and they really only got like 12 honor spren, like just to see the impact of what he's done hasn't really had anything. And now his relationship with his dad's at stake, and he's like, none of the world makes sense, and it only makes sense when he picks up his sword and he gets up with just his peg leg after suffering like bridgeman torture, holding the shield with the pike. It culminates to him getting knocked down and he's about to die, and I literally thought he was going to die. And he shouts, "Not until I see him again," thinking of his dad. And he kicks with his peg leg and he just barely survives. I was literally, that entire chapter, I was just reading and no expression. I was sitting next to my girlfriend and just tears just down my face. And she was like, "Dylan, what's up?" And I just put up my finger and I just kept reading. And it's such a good scene. It is my favorite scene in Wind and Truth. It is my second favorite scene in Stormlight. I absolutely love it. I love Adolin Kholin. I love his art. Coming in first place, "You cannot have my pain." Oh, such a good line. Such a banger. Absolutely love it. Dalinar's arc in Oathbringer is absolutely wonderful. Oathbringer is my favorite book. It's a great way to just start the Battle of Thaylen Field and how crazy that battle is. And I thought Dalinar was going to like switch to the bad side. Like I thought it was going to be taking a really cool direction, and then he's like, "You cannot have my pain," and it was taking an even cooler direction, and it was absolutely great. I literally have a sword in my book so I can immediately flip to it and read those pages. Oh, I might read it right now. It's so good. It's so good. I love it. I love it so much. All right, this video is probably getting long enough already. Subscribe if you want to see more future Cosmere content, and I have a link to the tier list in the description down below, so feel free to do it yourself. Let me know what you think in the comments. All right, outros are weird, so I hope you had happy holidays. Bye.